How's everyone doing? How's everyone doing? Oh boy. Oh boy, you probably had some echo there. My bad. All right. I'm a little late. We'll give everybody else a little bit of time just in case they're a little late, and then we'll jump into the news. We got some exciting topics to talk about. Quite a bit happened. I'm actually working. I'm actually working to make these news segments a little more concise. I think it would be more fun to talk about, 5 topics a little more in depth than to just cover the whole breadth of things. And then we can have really short weekends if there's not a whole lot to talk about. If there was a pretty calm week. So yeah. Anyways, welcome to the Null News. If you're new, if you haven't seen these very much, we just cover tech news. I'd like you to leave, let me know either on Discord or in chat what type of news you find most interesting. And we'll obviously make sure that you include it. Right now, we have a couple things. We have security, cloud, ML. Today, we have a whole new topic on how to destroy your company in 3 easy steps. Then we have a general and an open source section where we cover different things in those. All right. Well, I'm going to give just one more minute before we get into it. The very first thing we're going to talk about is a new, we usually start with security, changing it up just a little. So we're going to start out with a new thing that dropped out there for Rust. So for all you Rust fans, there's, I'm going to say this is maybe like the way to know if your language has made it. And it happened to Rust. So good job to the Rust community. Then we're going to jump into security, which we have 3 interesting topics. 2 of them around the clouds and Kubernetes, and 1 around your GitHub. So if you want to make sure your GitHub account doesn't get taken over, you might want to stay tuned for that. There wasn't a whole lot in the cloud. We do have a few topics that we're going to go over, a couple little things that happened, but for really not a whole lot happened there. That should go fairly quickly. The same goes for the machine learning section. There are a few things, none that I think we really need to talk in depth about, and we'll move on. Then there's the whole how to destroy your company in 3 easy steps. We should have a good little conversation. I'm not really big in that community. I did want to cover it though, because it is part of the software community, so we'll get into it. Let's go ahead and get started with Rust Rover. So JetBrains makes some of the best IDEs, or so I have been told. I don't personally use them. Now, I did download Rust Rover, and we used it Thursday to do a little bit of stuff live on stream, test it out, see how it is. It was pretty good. I have to say, if you do a lot in your cargo TOML files, it is by far the best cargo TOML file editor out there. Hands down. No plugin in Visual Studio Code or NeoVim holds a candle to it. It's fantastic. So if you're a Ruster, if you're trying to learn Rust, you might want to try giving it a download. Now, there were some rough edges that we noticed, But, it wasn't too bad. It wasn't too bad. We just noticed a few little rough edges. Honestly, it kind of just worked. And yeah, it's what you can expect out of a IDE from JetBrains. You've tested all the plugins. No, I didn't test all the plugins. Thank you. Thank you for correcting my English there. I have tried quite a few cargo TOML file plugins in the Visual Studio Code library. Out of all the ones that I've tried, none of them have worked as well as this. I apologize. I will try to clarify that a little bit better. It was a really good experience editing that file, which just showed how directly they're supporting the Rust ecosystem. It was very nice. And I thought that it did pretty well. It was a little slow starting up. I believe that's the JVM. Now, the one thing I wanted to talk about, which I thought was a little weird. Rust Rover is a really bad name. You know what? Naming's hard. I'll give that to them. Naming's hard. The thing that I found really weird in all of this was the fact that JetBrains has another IDE that has good Rust support as well, called Fleet. I actually thought that Rust or JetBrains was pretty much not going to support any new editors. They were going to put everything into Fleet and, support different languages with plugins or the language servers, kind of like Visual Studio Code does. No reason to have a dedicated IDE for your language. You can make an IDE that, does it all. So I thought this is where they were going. And so, honestly, I didn't expect them to make Rust Rover. I'm not upset that they've done it. I'm just kind of surprised that they did that. That's what I'm going to say. So yeah, that was kind of an interesting piece of news. But no one cares about Fleet. I think Fleet is better than their other ones. Maybe I'm wrong. It loads up faster. It's much snappier. I like it. It's not better than VS Code, I guess, which is maybe the problem, and its docs were worse when I tried it, but it kind of just worked for the most part. I don't use it now. I did use it for, I think I tried it for 2 weeks. It's a general timeline. I try something. Now, I haven't tried Rust Rover for 2 weeks. I just gave it one shot for a couple of hours. I guess maybe I don't care. I guess that's my thing. Fleet had nothing to make me care about it more than something like VS Code. There was nothing so special about it that I was like, I don't have this in VS Code. Now, I'm using Vim a lot nowadays, but that was kind of the gold standard that I was holding it to was, does it have anything better? I think it was a little faster, and it wasn't Microsoft. Those were two things. Now, maybe once I loaded up with as many plugins as I had with VS Code, that would be a moot point. I don't know. The integrations with other team members look nice, but VS Code also has those things that work pretty well as well. So yeah, I guess maybe no one cares about Fleet, but I thought that's where they were pushing a lot of stuff. So that's why I said it was a little strange. It wasn't good enough. That I will agree with. That's what I found, is it just wasn't good enough to make me decide to switch everything over to it. And or even pay for it, because Fleet you will have to pay for. So it needs to be even better yet. Not only to make me worry about switching over, but also be worth the cost isn't bad. I think they were saying like something like $10 a month, which is not bad. So there you go. I think it's a good news for Rust. It means that the community has grown large enough where it's worth it for them to make an IDE for it. And first impressions, it was pretty good. All right, let's get into security. We actually have two things from Akamai. So if you guys don't know who Akamai is the people that bought Linode. Linode's kind of like their cloud computing arm, and they do some security stuff as well. So Akamai prevents the largest DDoS attack on a U.S. financial company. This is not the largest DDoS attack. I believe Google still holds that. It's either Google or Cloudflare, but it's the largest attack on a U.S. financial institution. Kind of specific, but I'm giving it to them. It was a big attack with traffic peaking at 900 gigabytes per second. That's a lot. That's a lot. And they successfully mitigated it. So this is a good job to them. This is really good. Really well done. Really well done. Just wanted to point out, it's interesting. The other one is can't be contained, finding a command injection vulnerability in Kubernetes. I'm going to post this in chat. If you guys are running in chat, did they use eBPF? For the DDoS protection, they use their platform. I don't know how their platform works. I can post the link for you if you'd like. I don't believe in this they went into detail. So unfortunately, this was not a Cloudflare blog post. When Cloudflare does this, they go into a lot of detail, and this wasn't. So it wasn't a ton of detail, but I will give you guys the link so you can read it yourself. They might have other blog posts on whether they use eBPF or not. I don't know off the top of my head. So the other thing that I found from Akamai while I was perusing their posts was this. They found a container injection vulnerability in Kubernetes. This only affects Windows, I believe. It's only affects Windows. Let me see right here. Let me make sure. Yeah. So it only affects if you have Windows nodes. So it's possible. I know I've never done it, but it is possible to have Windows machines and Windows containers, which again slightly confuse me. But if you have those and you're leveraging them, basically you can run privileged commands on the host node. So it's a system elevated privilege attack. So they get elevated privileges and can execute remote code on your machine. It's pretty much the worst thing that you could have happen to you. So yeah. It got an 8.8, which means it must be at least a little bit difficult to execute the attack, since it's not usually these remote code executions with privileges get above a 9. But I haven't dug into exactly how it's done, and it's only on the Windows nodes. So if you're running like Linux like you should be, you don't have to worry about this at all. Was it vulnerabilities in YAML? No, it was how they configured the YAML. So you can go into it. Basically, they could inject some new YAML, and if you applied the YAML, they could take over your machine effectively. Oh, VB script. Oh, maybe. Like I said, I didn't go too far into it because I don't know enough about Windows containers to know. It could be. Like I said, I know very little of this realm, but I wanted to talk on it because if you are a Windows, I need to know more about this. I need to do this. I need to run a Windows container, like a Windows container, not a container on the Windows operating system, which runs in WSL2. I need to actually run a Kubernetes node that's Windows that runs a Windows container. I don't know what that means, but like I said, I need to do it because I know so little about this. It's hard for me to... It's hard for me to comment. Good evening, Nighthound. How are you? So there's a critical GitHub vulnerability that is about repo jacking. Now, we talked about repo jacking a couple months ago where, you could jack somebody's repo from the redirects. So, GitHub makes it convenient where you can have this redirect if you rename your repo. where it will still operate at the old repo, but somebody can slide in where that old repo was sitting if you change your organization and actually jack all of those connections and give them garbage stuff. This is especially important with things like Go or GitOps that go directly to Git and use it as the source of truth. So repo jacking is kind of a serious job or a serious thing. This one isn't quite the exact same. The flaw could allow an attacker to exploit a race condition within GitHub's repository creation and username renaming operations. So basically, it's I guess there's a race condition in there that allows you to jack the repo. And so successful exploitation of this vulnerability impacts the open source community by enabling the hijacking of over 4,000 code. I don't know how they get how many could be affected by this or not. But anyways, so they released a fix for it. So that's good. But yeah, I don't know. I just learned of this. Hopefully my repos haven't been jacked. And that's it. Did anybody else see anything for security? Remember, please feel free to bring your own articles. Please feel free to give them to me ahead of time as well, if you would like. All right. GCP didn't announce anything. We'll jump right into cloud news. GCP didn't announce anything. Lodash. I do actually have Lodash, just to prove it. Here we go. I was going to talk about that at the end in our open source section. Yeah, but cool. That's the type of stuff I want you to bring because I don't see everything. I did actually catch that one and I was like, wow, I'm surprised because I actually don't use Lodash. I know a lot of things do, but I don't actually use it because I'm not cool enough or smart enough to do web stuff. Web scale scares me. All right, so GCP didn't release anything that I found, nothing of interest, except for this reference architecture. I thought, as you all know, I'm a huge fan of reference architecture, so I'm going to drop this if you're looking to do something on GCP. They dropped this reference architecture, and I thought that it was pretty in-depth for something Google releases and goes into the problem pretty well. Now, I don't think this is a problem many people will have. Excuse me. So I don't think this is an architecture that a lot of people are going to want to replicate, but I think you can learn some from going over it if you do. I read through it, and it did a fairly good job of talking about what they did, how they originally architected their things in GCP, the problems they came across, the challenges, and then finally what they did to solution or to fix it. But the nice thing was they didn't just give this as the solution. They gave this, but then also went into how they configured their Envoy proxy sidecars, which I know Envoy can kind of be a little daunting for a lot of people. So I thought that this was a really nice high level of not only how to do it, but digging into some of the how to actually solve it, not just at a high level. So I thought it was fairly good at that, and I thought it was a really good article to read. Again, I don't think there should be a lot of people trying to replicate this. It's kind of highly specific, but I learn a lot through these because I try to understand these setup problems. What was the problem? Why did this original one not work? This is really important. Actually, I wish that they had gone a little bit more into the problems and the challenges, because that can help guide you with why their solution was good. So anyways, is that why you don't use MongoDB? I don't know what you're referring to, but I have a lot of reasons why I don't use MongoDB. Especially because one of the reasons is you can't fit squirrel into the name. And if you can't fit squirrel in the DB name, I mean, come on. All right, so we'll move on to Azure. This is one that I thought I would bring up because I think it has impact for you guys. Now, I could not find MongoDB is web scale. Yeah, that's right. I can't do web scale. We know that. And since MongoDB is web scale, I just can't do it. I could not find their original pricing. I didn't go to the Wayback Machine. I probably could have, but in my 5 minutes of looking, I could not find their original pricing, but it is now migrated to Gen 2 pricing. So I believe that is a price increase, but don't quote me on that. So at this point, as of September 15th, which is when this is published, you will be grandfathered into the Gen 2 pricing. The Gen 1 is gone. I think they also charge differently. Like it was more of like only one or two things, whereas now the new pricing has a bunch of different special clauses. So if you're using the map API, be looking out for this. In theory, maybe you could save money by utilizing it differently under the new pricing structure since everything is now broken out. So anyways, that's just something to be on the lookout for. If you're in Azure, pricing has changed. Again, it was hard to compare because I didn't have the original. So our CSVs. Oh boy. Azure Machine Learning had a couple of things come out in public preview for machine learning. So if you're into machine learning, there are a few new things. We'll talk about them in order of least interesting to most interesting, which is basically inverse order. So model monitoring for LLM applications, basically just giving you more insights into how your model is running. This one, the enjoy the prompt flow code first functionality, which doesn't seem as much of a feature as a marketing ploy. But the last one and the most interesting one to mine is the vision models for model catalog. So basically they have this model catalog and they've now released vision models in that. So these are pre-trained by companies or individuals that are in a catalog. I think most of them right now are by Microsoft. I believe there is an option for people to also put theirs out there. Right now, I see the ones. But these have a lot of different vision tasks that are already there for you to, these models that are already there to be trained on your data for you if you like. So it's kind of cool and kind of interesting. So I think that's a cool like marketplace idea. The next, I actually think that this is maybe one of the, I almost think this right here is the future of AI. A marketplace for the models that you can train on your data. So you want to do something and you have data, but you don't necessarily have the ML chops or whatnot. If you could just point something with very little tuning or just, high level tuning, I think that's a really awesome idea to let you leverage those models for your own things. So anyways, I think this type of thing is pretty fantastic. AWS. Amazon EMR on EKS now supports a managed Apache Flink. So if you're using EMR and you're using Apache Flink, you can now marry these two. AWS Cloud Map now supports AWS Private Link. Private Link is really cool. I love Private Link. To be honest, it's one of the best. The only one that I think has better than AWS is Cloudflare. No surprise, they do that really well. But Cloud Map now supports Private Link. So if you're trying to give a private offer or something like that, you can leverage that now. Code pipeline support for GitLab groups. So basically bringing better support for GitLab groups to their code pipeline. So if you're leveraging their code pipelines to do your CI/CD or whatnot, your DevOps, your GitOps, whatever, and you're leveraging a GitLab groups, it now supports it. And that's it for the cloud. Did you guys see anything else in the cloud that was newsworthy? Besides our web scale CSVs? If not, we'll move on to machine learning. Right after machine learning, we have one of our favorite parts, how to destroy your company in 3 easy steps. Then we'll move on to general and open source. Open source is where we're going to talk about Logstash, not Lodash, Lodash, not Logstash. My bad. You know, there's a lot of names for things. It's hard to keep them all straight. Lodash. All right. But we have some other things before then. We have a couple cool things. We even have a release of a new database. Version 1.0 is hitting the market. Never used it before. And it released not as open source, but source available. And guess what? Nobody has complained. I think that's the way to do it. Instead of pulling people along and then switching your license, is just to start the one way. But let's jump into the AI. Google AI introduces a new TensorFlow simulation framework that enables the computation of fluid flows with TPUs. This is really cool. Is it Oracle 1.0? Remember, our licensing seminar is next month. Don't spill all the secrets, Russell, until our licensing thing next month. I need to make my millions. TensorFlow, so this is actually really cool because fluid flows has always been a really hard thing to simulate. And so I think being able to leverage TPUs to do that could be really cool. And this could be something that comes to things like Blender or other animation things that try to do fluid simulation. There's, I mean, obviously Blender, but then there's also engineering tools. So your Autodesks could leverage something like this for their fluid simulation. I think this is really cool. And this is where I see like the really awesome aspects of machine learning. This amazing statistical analysis that you can leverage. I honestly, these are the types of problems that get leveraged that I'm excited to see how we help solve greater problems with it, because fluid dynamics is difficult. Salesforce embeds I almost said confrontational. Hopefully it's not confrontational, but a conversational AI across its platform with Einstein Copilot. So if you haven't used Copilot in my goodness, this is the 8th. I have added it together. This is the 8th Copilot that is out there that is related to AI. And Salesforce just had to jump on the bandwagon. So, yep. I think this is actually a really cool aspect that you could do with the GPT. So basically what they did, and I think honestly, this could hit documentation, this could hit a bunch of other aspects, is a chatbot trained on your stuff to help users with it. So effectively think of a really fantastic chatbot that's trained on your documentation, on your code base. 1 second. Do you need something? Yeah, as long as they're there, that's fine. Yeah. Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that. Do 8 copilots equal one pilot? I don't think that's how it works. I don't think that's how it works. Is that like the can 9 women make one baby in a baby in a month? I don't think that's how it works. I don't think that's how it works. Confrontational AI helping you argue with your customers. That's right. Get Einstein Copilot so you don't have to argue with your with your customers. If one of them is 8 months pregnant, then yes. Russell. Like I said, Russell is the Null channel's spirit animal. So, all right. I actually do think this is another really good use of the GPT transformers really is how it is doing something like this, taking it and training it on your own data, on your own things to then leverage to do something like this, where you can have a really awesome help environment that's kind of smart. I say kind of, not really smart, but helpful, kind of helpful. This one was one that kind of took me by surprise. Microsoft open sourced EODiff. EvoDiff is a protein generating AI, which is helpful to do protein folding structures. I don't know much about protein folding. I know that my PlayStation 3 actually helped compute protein folding for science, but that's about all that I know about protein folding. So anyways, they made an AI for it. They open sourced it, which is pretty cool. So if you're into that, here's that. But we'll move on. Google begins experimental testing of GPT-4. Hopefully, Gemini is a little bit better at telling actual truthful things than its predecessor, because their original foray into AI chatbots has been a little less than clear sailings. So I'm interested in getting my hands on it. So far, I haven't found a way to actually sign up for it, but supposedly there are some corporate customers that are getting to get their hands on it. That is enabling this. The AI features are like embedded in the G Suite of tools. So think Gmail, think Google Docs, and those types of things. So I'm interested to see how those could help. I think it could be an interesting tool. We'll see how it goes. The last thing is researchers at Stanford introduce Spellburst. The number one thing to solve with AIs, it seems, is coding. I don't know why coders think that's the only thing to solve with AIs is coding. But there is another new powered creative coding environment. So I don't know exactly what this is. If I can get my hands on it and we can actually use it, I'm gonna give it a try. But I haven't been able to get my hands on it. But yeah, I don't know what a powered creative coding environment is, but I'm interested. Count me interested. All right. Now, creative coding. Russell, have you seen me stream? Because sometimes what I do is creative coding. It doesn't mean good coding. It usually is the opposite, but it's creative. Good coders would have never thought to do the things that I'm doing. That is creative coding. And I have found that most AI coding things are really good at that, coming up with unique ways to not solve your problem. So anyways, I feel like I have a lot in common with these coding AIs, actually. You can only think of web development. Web 1, Web 2, Web 3. But we're already on Web 5. So please, Russell, get with the times. Next, 2024 is the year of Web 6. So, I'm just getting you warmed up to the idea so you can get involved. I know. Next year is Web 6. Still running on the same web that I know of. All right. So this next section is a new special guest section that was created just for this week. I hope to not have to do this section every single week, but it is the how to destroy your company in 3 easy steps. In what web do NFTs make money without being a scam? I think you're going to have to go to Disney and Marvel to get that information. Because I've heard they have a lot of universes, and I've heard that there might be a universe where there is a web version that that's true. None of them, but stay tuned for Web 6. Look, NFTs are old news. NCFTs are the whole new thing. I'm going to be selling them this January. You don't want to be missing the NCFTs when I release them in January, because they are going to revolutionize many aspects of the web. Mickey NFT verse. All right. Let's jump into how to destroy your company in 3 easy steps. So I found this to be very, very, very sad, to be honest. I found this to be very sad because the thing is, game development is very difficult. Game development is very difficult. And also usually doesn't pay out well. You always see something like a Hollow Knight that comes up and people make a lot of money off of it, but those are the 1 in a million that you actually see, and not all the other ones. And there's only a couple really good engines out there. I'm not discounting any of the engines. I don't say, but if you're talking about an engine that's not like only built to run on Apple, because there is a game engine that Apple's created for just their phones, but if you want it to run on other things and you want a general purpose game engine, there's not a ton of them out there. The major ones that I know of are Unity. Unity is a huge one in like the 2D and indie games, but they also have some bigger titles as well. I believe Rust, the bane of the Rust programming language existence, is in Unity. There's some larger games that are in Unity, but it also has dominated other things. On the higher end, you have Unreal Engine 5, which has dominated first-person shooters. We could talk about something like the Source Engine, which is kind of nasty to use. I wouldn't recommend it. Or the ID Tech 5 engine that also does more first-person shooter stuff. And then the only open source one, there's several open source ones, but the biggest open source one that I know of is Godot or Godot. I don't know which way you want to pronounce it. And so I can sit here and recount the 5 major ones, and 2 of those weren't even major. The ID Tech 5 has Wolfenstein, and I know an oddly a lot about game engines. The Source Engine has Dota 2 and Counter-Strike, and basically Steam games that are made by Steam are powered by it. There's a few other people, but not many people. So I go into that, and Unity is one of the big ones. And, you can start creating with Unity. It used to be that you could pay $2,000 a year and start using Unity. And that's what you would pay, $2,000 a year per person, which is a lot. But Unity brings a lot to the table. And if you were a student or hobbyist, you could get it for free with a lot of restrictions. But anyways, $2,000 a year. And this was considered kind of nice because Unreal Engine 5 says, hey, once you make, I don't know the price cutoff, something like $200,000 or $300,000, we're going to take 5%. Now, they also have a deal that if you release it on the Unreal Engine, their marketplace, they won't take that cut. So it's not bad, and their marketplace does really well. Their marketplace only takes 12%, so it's not a bad deal, but they take a cut as you succeed. What Unity decided to do was 2 things. The only good thing about the Unity mess up is the other engines are getting pushed to get better as people are looking for the options now. I kind of agree with you, Alf. I kind of agree with you because I actually think that some of the things Godot or Godot, I call it Godot. I think it's actually Godot, but I call it Godot. Anyways, one one of the things was console support, and the creator said they're pushing to get real console support in the base project for people, because at this point they don't have it. And so I think it's going to really drive. I'm excited about Godot. I actually think maybe next year, I don't really have the time this year, but maybe next year I'll do a couple streams where we learn a little Godot, play around, maybe make a little free game for the fun of it to learn. Unity released this, and this was one catastrophe after another. So not only do you pay your $2,000 per seat a year, but you're now going to pay, what was it? 20 cents per install. $0.20 per install. But it got even worse. One, they state it's a proprietary method of tracking how many times your game has been installed, and it's just an estimate. So they're going to charge you based off of an estimate. Second, it's per install. And it's very unclear is if I uninstall and reinstall, will it charge you again? They first said yes, and then they walked back. Let's see. There was a thing here. Yeah, so then there was this article. Unity rushes to clarify price increase plan as game developers fume. But I think let's forget all of this. Let's forget all of this. I think there's two larger mistakes that they made. First, they tried to make it retroactive. So whether they'll succeed legally, I know some people are fighting it, or are talking about taking them to court. But what they're doing is, if you released a game last year, it's going to be under this new pricing structure. So if you released a game under the old pricing structure, they're going to retroactively start charging you for this. So that was the first thing. They changed the terms and services. They also took down the GitHub repo that tracked that, as well as a couple months ago, they made, or like early this year, they made changes to their terms of service that they got people on board with because they snuck it in there, that basically made it so that they could make retroactive changes. Well, in theory, at least. Yeah, I wonder how they're going to deal with the GDPR side of regulating the install tracking. Well, that's the thing. They've come out and blatantly said that it's just an estimate. They're not actually getting real data. They're going to charge you on your installs based off of a guesstimate that they have a proprietary data model. That will solve GDPR. GDPR is easy to get around if you do it right. They're going to store that on EU servers, the problem is you can't charge somebody. And this is what I tweeted at them. They did not respond to my tweet, unfortunately. But I said that, what if AWS said that they would charge you on estimated minutes used? And they would use a proprietary model that just guesses at how many minutes they used an EC2 server. I mean, nobody would do that. That's garbage. That's just complete garbage. Like, it's a dumb and stupid thing. If they had said, going forward, we're going to put another 1% charge on profits that you make, I don't think people would have had a problem. There would be some people that say, no, you're starting to cost too much because Unreal only takes 5%, and you can even get out of that if you release your game on the Unreal marketplace. And so, we're out. But nobody would get as mad as they are getting now because it's just a choice, and you can either opt in and move on in the future or keep with your current release under your current licensing terms. But that's not what they did. The pressure on Godot will be overwhelming. It will be a negative outcome for them in the short term, where everyone jumping over from Unity means this does not work like Unity. I actually agree with you that Godot's going to have a pretty rough year. I actually think they're going to have a pretty rough year. Not only is there going to be pressure from a lot of people onboarding that are going to ask questions, not understand, are learning the system. They're going to have a lot of people asking for features that existed in Unity, that has a huge company that has been supporting a marketplace and whatnot. So, I know that Godot's creator said that they're working on consoles and a public marketplace where people can like put up and sell their assets, an asset store. And so like they're working on that. But that's just the tip of the iceberg of features that people come to expect, and even just marketplace content. So I think Godot is going to have a lot of trouble going forward. I think they're going to have a lot of I think it was going to be a rough. I would encourage people that if you are trying to make it in Godot, give them the benefit of the doubt. Help out. Actually, it's an open source project. Go contribute some code. You're a game developer. You're smarter than me. You can develop some code. Just do it. So yeah, that's basically it. Now, it turns out that they were going to have a all hands. Now, a lot of people have also left the company at this point. I was trying to count up, but there's actually too many for me to go find. Quite a few of their senior engineers have resigned. And some of the engineers said there'll be more by Friday. I don't know if they were talking about this Friday or next Friday, because one of those tweets was on Thursday, one of those tweets was on Saturday. So I'm getting a little mixed message. I haven't been able to spend all my time keeping up with the drama. But yeah, so I don't know where this puts them. The interesting thing is, one conspiracy theory that I like is that this is forcing Apple's hand. I actually like it. I think it's brilliant. I think if that was the CEO's intention, it was brilliant. Because Apple kind of switched from Unreal Engine to Unity. It was kind of hacked in. I believe they were going to go with Unreal until Unreal or Epic Games sued them over their marketplace practices. But now you kind of need Unity. You kind of need Unity if you want to make your Apple stuff. So is Apple going to sit around? I haven't heard anything from Apple at this point. There's also a campaign. Actually, a lot of companies have said that they have shut off all Unity ads. So yes, that is actually a thing that's happening right now. So we'll see. Will this be a buyout? I actually think a buyout from Apple is the best thing to happen to Unity. I don't think Apple wants an game engine. Maybe they would open source it. They would buy it and open source it. Probably not, but I think that would be good. That's what you should do, Apple. You should buy the Unreal Engine. It's cheap, or not the Unreal Engine, but the Unity engine, because it's cheap right now. Their stocks are down quite a bit. So right now is a great time to buy them and just open source it. And then you can use it for your Apple stuff without worrying about a certain person being dumb. Oh, yeah, yes, Russell. That's exactly what I'm saying. It's not actually forcing their hand. Apple could just wait for the stock price to tank, then buy a discount when Unity is dying. Absolutely. I think that maybe that's Apple's plan. Let them burn. Let them burn. Yeah, unfortunately, the big problem here is that this has just... Obviously, this is bad, but it's bad on a lot of levels. Like, we complain about companies doing stupid stuff, but this has been beyond stupid. And the problem is they've also doubled down. Each time they try to clarify, they've made it worse in their clarification. So the first time they clarified, they were like, yeah, reinstalls are going to count. So basically, when they said that, they were basically saying I could just script an install and uninstall of a game and charge the game company thousands of dollars pretty easily. It was so bad. Then they've come back and say that's not going to be the case, but multiple devices will charge. And this actually makes an entire genre of games infeasible. Think about this genre of game. Let's say I make a silly little mobile app that has a single ad, and it makes $200,000. But 500 million people downloaded it. I would actually owe money. I would actually owe money if 500 million people downloaded my game that was making $200,000. I would owe them a lot of money, like millions of dollars. When you have a thing that could do that. So like Flappy Birds would be a great example of a game like this. There's actually a lot of examples of games like this where they make a lot of money for a single person, but like it's not a lot of money for the number of installs. And this just won't be possible now with their pricing model. With Unreal Engine, it would be fine. They just take 5% of your gross profits, which seems reasonable. I mean, it's a lot. Don't get me wrong. It's a lot, but it's a whole lot more reasonable than owing money because you released your game. Like literally owing money. How do you make a free game now? You don't. You can't. You're going to be... I guess as long as you don't make $200,000, you're fine. But then this has my question. What if you make $200,000 from a paid game and you make a free game? You could owe money on the free game. It just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense in any way at all. I think that it's just a dumb concept from its core. It's just stupid. I'm sorry. I'm moving on because I can't. You know, we'll talk about HashiCorp changing their license. And people are annoyed. Don't get me wrong. There's the whole open Terraform that seems to actually be gaining ground. But this makes open Terraform or Terraform's licensing choice seem like child's play. That's the level of this. This isn't suffering from success. This is suffering from greed and stupidity. It can't even be greed. This isn't the way to do it. This wasn't the way to do it. Let's talk about Microsoft-backed AI startups beats in the NVIDIA H100 on key test with GPU-like card equipped with 256 gigabytes of RAM. That's a lot of RAM, and I would love to understand what PCI this is. I almost expected it to be like a dual PCI slot card. But this is a startup that's looking to make things just for training machine learning. Lots of memory, able to hold a lot of stuff in memory. Obviously, I don't think actually the throughput, like the PCI, is a big deal because the idea is to have it all in the memory of the GPU. So it's cool to see new things coming as far as things that are going to hit data centers. You're not going to own this card itself, but they're going to be in their data centers that are going to make it cheaper to run your machine learning pipeline. So I think that's pretty cool, and I'm excited about it. All indie devs should register offshore companies and tax havens and refuse to close their earnings to Unity. Feel free to track installs. You can't prove it. All right. This is not financial or legal advice. We are not... The fact that what you're saying is, anyways, it's bad. We're moving on because it's just dumb. I love this article and I wanted to share it with you guys. We built the fastest CI in the world. It failed. Here's what we learned. All right. So what I loved about this is, you know, at one point or another, we've all worked on some little startup project idea, thought we had, open source project or whatnot. And the premise of this article is they succeeded in doing what they did. And it was great, but it still failed. And I think this is really great for engineers to read. It doesn't have technical stuff. All they state is they achieved their technical goals. But what it says is what you have to be doing is solving problems that your users have. And doing it, it goes into more than that. I'm not going to go with it. I'm not going to go into depth on it, but it's kind of this, they ran into this mismatch of their early adopters and what their end goal was. So basically, their end goal wasn't a thing that was easy to get new adopters on, and their early thing wasn't the same as their end goal. So they had this mismatch, and it was hard to get early adopters on the new thing, and it was hard to get the new people on the new thing, and it caused a whole bunch of problems. But it's really important to think about these types of things when you're thinking about the growth of your application and how people are going to stick with it. And that's what they didn't do. And I think it's something engineers, project management teams can be thinking about. And so I thought it was a good article. So I liked it. All right, SurrealDB launched. This is written in Rust, so it's got to be blazing fast. Now, I don't know that. Haven't used it. A lot goes into how you manage your files is not the language that's written in. But before this, a lot of your big databases out there are in C and C++. So you're talking about your Postgres is in C++. I don't know what Mongo's in. I think Mongo must be in C#. But, you know, your Redis is in C, I believe Redis is C. And you can go on and on with them. So this is really cool. There are some other small databases, but SurrealDB is a cloud database. Now, what I think is interesting is you haven't heard any fuss about SurrealDB's license. Not one bit. SurrealDB launched under the same license as HashiCorp now holds. So this is the BSL license, BLS license. My goodness, BSL. I can't say it. The business source license. That's what it is. Okay, the business source license, which basically says it will be Apache version 2 in 2027. And now this rolls with each release. So each release, you know, basically has a 4-year window. So until then, it's just source available. It's not actually open source. Russell, we're going to get in so much trouble. There's going to be a Mongo person that joins our stream, and I'm going to blame you guys. So anyways, this is cool. Like I said, I don't know. I've never used it, but it looks interesting. It's kind of a new take on a cloud-first database, so I'm kind of interested in to try it at some point. But I also like that they came out with that first as their license. So I think that's really good. I'll keep that in mind, Russell. Another thing that I found really interesting is Google is hiring. Google laid off a bunch of people. Everything from communication manager to staff software engineers, a bunch of different positions from a company that laid off a bunch of people. That has to be expensive because they're still paying the severance on those people they let go. So I think that's kind of rough. Salesforce is also starting to hire again. So these are the companies that did a lot of big layoffs, and I can't imagine that it's paid off for them. Especially because the new people that you hired when you do a layoff had institutional knowledge. They were onboarded. They actually have more value than the new people that you're going to hire for more money. So I think this is going to come back and bite people as a very expensive decision when they decide to panic and let people go. Now, I personally think that Google has hired too many people, but they seem to think that they need to hire more again. So we'll see. It starts again. It seems like these big companies are really clueless. It feels like these companies are really clueless. I agree. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. It seems like they're completely clueless and they're just doing knee-jerk reactions. I would have expected them to understand a little bit better. They also have the cash flow as well as just the financial things to weather a little bit of hard times. That's what I said at the very beginning when it felt like a knee-jerk reaction, when it was like, I understand where you're like, hey, we're going to freeze hiring because we don't know exactly, but they're still positive earning. And so yeah, it seemed very weird. Oh, I keep wanting to call him Bernie Madoff, because it's not Bernie Madoff. He's not that bad, but this makes me think like off and Bernie, but it's not Bernie. Anyways, I don't know why. I always think of Mark as Bernie. Anyways, he is super two-faced, where he's like, I can't imagine working from an office again. You guys got to get back to the office. It's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. But I don't know. I've heard on the other end that he's much better than a lot of normal big CEOs. So I think maybe partially it's just what we read in the news, because I actually know a couple people that know him, and they said for your large CEOs that they would much rather work for him than other large CEOs. So, I don't know. I can only go off of what I see. So I don't know 100%. I don't know 100%. All right. Open source. We're on to some open source news. The first big open source news, the most downloaded bit of open source in the last week just took off in the last week. You might not know of this project, but you will know of this project as most of the major games are going to be released in it. Godot. It's out there, or Godot, however you want to pronounce it. Feel free to. I actually read a post on them arguing, but yeah, open source, it's out there. It's super popular in this last week. Unity is the bigger sponsor of Godot. Anyways, let's move on to some real open source news. Okay. Lodash. Many of you know Lodash. A few of you understand any of the issues open with it now. And the reason you don't know of any of the issues is they were all closed. Now, there was some new issues opened. Which I have here. Improving the communication with the community in a more transparent way. I love this because, you know what? While it was a slightly passive aggressive, it was a lot nicer than some people did. All of a sudden, all pull requests and all the issues were closed by the Lodash team. Did somebody ask to raise an issue asking to convert to pure JavaScript? So I was actually impressed. I was looking for when Turbo went in Turbo version 8, they removed all type definitions. And there were some people that did some pretty heinous remarks. People this time were fairly civilized. Like I said, these were a little passive aggressive. But a little passive aggressive is way better than the dumpster fire of Turbo 8. I even disagree with Turbo 8. I think they should have kept the type definitions in there. But yeah, people went off the hooks, off the rails, off the Ruby rails. Oh yeah. I think I deserve a follow for that one. They went off the Ruby rails. He's the creator of Ruby on Rails. Get it? Off the rails. Anyways. My bad. My bad. That was my so anyways, I guess there was some fatigue as well as possibly a V5. That's what they were saying was coming out. I don't buy the V5 part because even if you do have a version 5, you don't get rid of all your issues for V4. That's not generally how that works. Plus, even if you were going to do that, you would let people know. You would let people know, hey, we're not going to support version 4 anymore. We're going to close all issues for version 4. Basically, they didn't let anybody know anything. They closed out everything. And it was kind of another bad faith open source blunder. Now, I don't know that it was bad faith. The people might just be really tired. Oh, thank you, Russells. Russell, I thought it was a pretty good one. I liked it. Getting off the rails. I think he would have liked it too. DHH. I don't know why people call him DHH instead of his name, but a lot of people do. I can do it too. So I hope these people are okay. I hope, maybe they're not in a good place mentally. It's a stressful time. There's a lot of stuff going on. And, you never know the mental place people make these decisions from, what they're going through in life. And that's kind of the hard part about this. So, I really do hope that the Lodash people, the people that work on this, obviously there's a lot of open source people, but the main people that run this, that they're doing okay. I think we should try to make sure of that first. And then hopefully we can get, honestly, this isn't that big of a deal because you can fork the repository. It's not like they deleted the repository. They didn't. Lodash is still there. They didn't disrupt any supply chains. They did just close the pull request, but you can actually go and still find them. They didn't remove them from it. It's annoying and maybe petty, but by far this is not as bad as many other cases that I could find. David Hansen, right. I don't know why they call him DHH instead of David. I was forgetting his last name, Hansen. So anyways, that's on the Lodash. We'll see what progresses this next week. I'm hoping the community can come to a peaceful resolution here. I'm hoping that the maintainers can get some help if that's what they need. If they need more help, it seems like there's a passionate community that's going to be there to help them. And honestly, the community was one of the most understanding. I feel like every other time I've seen this, there's been some spicy tweets. But that's far less volatile than the other ones that I've seen. No, it's David Hansen, isn't it? It's David. I'm going to look it up right now. It's so David Hansen. Yeah. It's David Hansen. Oh, the middle name. Oh, okay. I didn't know his middle name. I was like, I know it's David Hansen. Hinimir. I don't know how to pronounce it. I'm not going to pronounce the middle name. That's not my job. That's somebody else's job. But don't worry, we have a little bit more news in the open source realm. Some cool stuff is out there. One interesting Eeny meeny miny mo. I don't know. I don't know. Let's talk about OpenSUSE wants to replace Leap with a new offering. So really cool person that has worked very tirelessly on OpenSUSE's thing that was on this is Richard Brown. He has done a fantastic job with the community. I've gotten a chance to work with Richard Brown, and he's very passionate about the OpenSUSE project. Now, what they're trying to do is right now there's two things that SUSE has. They have Leap, which is their kind of stable release. It's kind of like a Ubuntu release. And then they have Tumbleweed, which is their rolling release, but it's not as polished as something like Arch. And it doesn't have the community behind it. I think that's actually the big thing, is it doesn't have the community that Arch does, which is what causes Tumbleweed its trouble. So I think that they're looking to merge Leap and Tumbleweed. I think they're trying to come up with one product that is going to kind of solve both aspects of it, and is going to try to be there for both. So I thought that was an interesting thing. Nothing's happening right now, but they're definitely looking for things in the future. So I'll be interested in keeping up with what's going on there. I'll also message Richard to see if he'd like to talk about it. If you guys would like to have just like a little talk about, an inside look into some of those things. The last piece of news that I had was this: migrating Arch Linux package infrastructure to GitLab. I'll message Richard. I'll see if Richard would be up for it. See if he has anything he'd like to talk about. I know that he's done a ton of work for OpenSUSE. For those of you that don't know, SUSE has basically two branches. There's the SUSE side or SUSE side, and then there's the OpenSUSE side, which is the like all of the open source stuff. Now, the SUSE stuff is also open source, but it's like designed for commercial stuff that we sell support for. So anyhow, that's a longer story, but I will message Richard, see if he's up for anything. All right. Migrating Arch Linux packages infrastructure to GitLab. So this was a cool blog article. I know that there's a lot of Arch fans in this. I didn't know this was happening. I thought that this was a pretty cool concept. I didn't know that they didn't use Git 3 years ago. Like, who doesn't use Git 3 years ago? Well, I guess Arch didn't, but they're using GitLab now. They're using GitLab, and they're using GitLab CI/CD, and so like, it's pretty cool. Now, again, this is more of a sales pitch. They didn't go into everything, but I thought it was an interesting thing. It's cool to see those types of projects. To think that an entire OS packaging could happen on GitLab's DevSecOps platform, that's actually a pretty good win for GitLab as far as that goes. Like, if you can say I can run all of Arch stuff to get it from, nothing to production, that's a pretty good win. That's pretty awesome. Yeah. So anyways, I found that cool. All right. That being said, I have one last announcement, and that is I might not be doing the news next week. So if I don't, I apologize in advance. I might be able to, but I might also be out of town. So there's nothing that I can do except tell you there's a possibility that I'm out of town. And if I'm out of town, I'll let you guys know in the Discord. I should know ahead of time. I'm hopefully knowing in the next couple of days. But for those of you who join in for the news and the cloud news, there's a distinct possibility. If everything goes well, I'll be out. So yeah. No, Russell, that's exactly what I said. If it can cope with Arch, it can build your products easy peasy. Like, I think that's a really great statement. I don't see GitHub Actions saying, "Hey, yeah, we build an entire OS." Red Hat builds Red Hat Enterprise Linux on GitHub Actions. That's a pretty cool accomplishment. I don't use GitLab, so I can't really comment myself, but I think it's a pretty cool accomplishment. I think it's pretty cool. I would actually love to talk with some Arch people. I'll have to see if some Arch people would like to join. I think what I would love to do with this news section, if I could get it to do this, I'd like to talk only, and you guys let me know how you feel about this. I would like to talk about 5 or 6 big topics that have happened that week. Do a little more research on them, go a little deeper than I'd go wide. I go very wide right now. I try to cover everything that people could find useful, but it's really wide. It's like a really wide breadth of stuff. I think maybe I'd like to go deeper and then have a second section where I get to talk to somebody, bring somebody on stream, and we talk about a topic with that person. So, like if it was Richard, we would talk about OpenSUSE, their future plans, what they're going through, how people could get involved in the community. If it's somebody from Arch, we could talk about this 3-year thing. So we could try to find somebody from Arch that would like to talk about it. That would be really cool. So I would like to try to start doing that. So if you know people that would like to join that, or if you have feedback on that concept for the news, let me know, because maybe you like it just how it is and those plans are bad. You know what? I would so 100% interview the CEO of Unity. That would be amazing. If he wanted to give me a interview, I would even be polite. I can be a very polite person. I would ask hard questions, maybe not hard questions. I would ask questions like, do you have regrets? And questions like, if there was 2 things you could redo in your life, what would they be? Maybe not hard questions. Yeah. Could we ask the Arch person why I keep getting an error with it? You know what? You're not allowed to ask your Arch questions until I get my Arch questions resolved. Like, why Anaconda, just the package is corrupted. And then like I deleted everything Anaconda and then tried to reinstall it and it's still corrupted. I don't know. I don't use Anaconda anymore for my Python. So the answer would probably be no. We'd have them on for a conversation to talk about something. I think that would be fun. I think that could help. I would also love to do it with open source projects, talk about their open source projects, understand what they're doing and why. I don't know that I'm a large enough YouTuber or streamer to actually get those people, but I think that's what I'm going to try to strive towards. So I'm going to send some emails out, see if they'd like to join me. I know some because I know the people, but those are not that many. Not many. I'll probably be banned from that stream if you get the CEO of Unity on. I might ask you not to join. I might ask you to not join. Watch the VOD. Watch the VOD. All right, you guys have a wonderful rest of your Sunday or Monday morning. I hope that you have a great next week. And, I hope to have the news with you next week, but maybe not. Anyways, Nightbot working overtime. I'd get charged for Nightbot. Anyways, have a fantastic week, and I will see you guys the next time.